As most of you know, I spent 20 years with the Georgia Department of Veterans Service. But this presentation is not a result of that 20-year stint with the GDVA. It's a result of the fact that we were approached by Commissioner Ross to say we're having some financial issues in terms of the state budget and how it's impacting our two veterans homes. So, yeah. Just by way of background, as I said, there's two homes. There's one in Augusta, one in Milledgeville, and the capacity is listed there, total of just over 400 capacity in terms of the facility. There's a lot of beds that are potential that could be used, but they're not funded, and so they're vacant. Non-service connected veterans are those who are VA beneficiaries, but the reason that they're there is usually for medical issues as opposed to injuries, and they're there because they're eligible through the VA system, but their illnesses and their injuries were not related to combat or service on active duty. Total funding from the two funding sources, which is the VA and the state budget, is just over $40,000, almost $41,000. And it is an interesting process, and I'm not going to bore you with the detail as to how these funds come and how they're split and who does what to whom. But just to give you a feel for it, out of that almost 41,000, 16,000 of it is in state money, or 16 million, excuse me. Yeah, total 40 million. Thank you. Keep me straight, Kerry. And another 24 million in federal dollars. The interesting part is, and this is where it starts to get hunky, is the VA says they're not going to pay more than half of the cost of care for non-service connected veterans. So that means that at least whatever half of the cost of care is, another dollar needs to be added by the state, at least. And then everybody's happy. Yes. Augusta is operated by the Medical College of Georgia, which is a part of the Augusta University. And there are service-connected funds that are included at a reduced rate as opposed to the service-connected that we'll talk about in a moment, where there's nobody there but them. And at Augusta, it serves as a training center for the Medical College of Georgia, for residents, interns, and a few medical students that they bring in each year. At Milledgeville, it's a contracted operation. STC or STG International is the current contractor. They're out of Arlington, Virginia. It had been run by Pruitt Health for over 20 years, and they started asking for more money than what the department had, and they are no longer involved. Projected home subacute treatment unit for service-connected veterans, and that's a project that started about 7-8 years ago. It still has not seen its first patient for funding reasons, and may, in fact, go away because of funding concerns. Next. Non-service connected patients are funded by the state and the feds. Federal funds for non-service connected patients are paid on a per diem basis at both homes. this is where it gets a little bit funky too, is the home in Augusta is not paid by the state on a per diem basis. There's a budgeted amount, and you start there, and then you get the federal funds, and anyway. At Milledgeville, everything's per diem. So it's really easy to calculate and to figure out how much is going to go in. But at Augusta, it's a little bit different. As I mentioned, the service-connected patients are funded entirely by the VA, and that's because they were contacted with an injury or an illness due to active duty service, and mainly disabled service, because they require more care than a non-service connected person. Next. Currently, the VA service-connected rate is $497.75 in Augusta and $454.82 in Milledgeville. That's on a per diem basis. The reason for the difference is Milledgeville's considered a rural area, Augusta is considered an urban area, and the rate is higher for the urban area. So that's the reason for the difference. The non-service rate from the federal government is 107, and that's at all state veterans homes nationwide. I mentioned earlier about got to have at least $1 more in state funding. So the state funding at both homes is at $108.16 per patient day. So the total non-service connected payment is $215.32. $43.01 is included in that state rate, and it's actually paid for by veterans. This is something the General Assembly did about 10 years ago. Anybody know Mary Margaret Oliver? Love her to death. She was insistent that the state charge veterans for care at the veterans homes. And we finally came up with an agreement. We negotiated, great fun. And that's what we came up with, was this patient care rate. And it's steadily gone up over the years because the cost of care has gone up. But the state budget that's fed to us by the General Assembly has in fact been going down, and that's what is precipitating this conversation today. Next. Facility-wise, about 400 patients total can be housed there, but the state is only getting, the department's only getting 295 funding for 295 patients. In 2020, the operating budget for non-service connected veterans was reduced by approximately $1.33 million, which resulted in a 50% reduction in patient beds, which has not been restored. The VA has determined Georgia has a need for 1,995 patient beds for veterans. Surrounding states are operating at whatever their allocation is by the VA. Unfortunately, Georgia is not one of those. We're operating for 13% of that 1995. That's a funding concern. 2 homes. There has been an initiative since Commissioner Ross came in to fund 2 more homes, one in the Gwinnett area and one in North Cobb or Cherokee. However, the funding is not there. So it would cost an additional $7 million to fund the extra 400 beds that we could be getting next. And I think you all know that the state budget has been rebuilt. If you don't, when you get your tax refund this year from the state, you're going to get, actually, before this year's over, you're going to be getting, I think, another $250 that the governor has put in. But no more money for veterans' homes. So the department has asked to get some money out of that excess, hadn't been forthcoming. And without an increase in state funding, these non-service connected patient census is going to continue to decline. That's just the bottom line. Next. Since 2014, the VA has increased their rate for non-service connected per diem based on inflation and rising healthcare costs, and it's amounted to $17.61 per patient day. State hasn't gone up 1 penny. Without a commensurate state increase, the increasing cost of care ended up passed on to patients via the increase in the daily patient fee. Remember, that's what the veteran is paying, along with a decrease in veteran patient days, because we can't exceed whatever this is in the state budget, whatever it's funding. From 22 to 24, the patient census declined by 25% at Milledgeville due to a lack of increased funding. Currently, there's a self-imposed waiting list at Milledgeville because they don't have the funds to support, and so there's beds that are empty. Next. The subacute unit, which, like I said, has been being worked on for the last 7-8 years. We've gotten some new construction, we've gotten a large amount of renovation, but they're empty beds at this point because we don't have the funds to cover the staff, and the VA isn't going to pay until we bring patients in because of the per diem way that they pay for the care. The unit will care for post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injuries, and some traumatic amputations. That's what it's designed to do. But the VA is going to pay 100% of the operating cost once we can get it open. So that's why these beds are sitting there empty. Next. It's the only unit at the Milledgeville home that's actually designed to treat younger veterans. Most of the veterans that are treated at Milledgeville, and all of them from Augusta too, are all folks like us. Some non-service connected, some service connected. Either we're there because we've got age illnesses, or we're there because we've got a combat-related injury, illness. But to get the home or that unit open is going to cost the state, or is costing $11 million in VA construction dollars. If we can't get that open, we're probably going to have to return that $11 million to the VA, which is really sad because the VA probably will not give the state of Georgia more construction dollars because we haven't used them wisely, quote unquote. Next. So what do we need? What we need is for everybody to contact their state legislators and say we need more money for the veterans homes in Augusta and Milledgeville. Contact the governor's office. I mean, the way the budget system works in Georgia, the governor proposes through the Office of Planning and Budget a budget for the coming year. And usually the governor goes along with whatever the OPB people recommend. And right now the OPB people are recommending no increases. I could get personal as to why this is happening, and if you want to know the personal story, see me after the meeting. The benefits of the Veterans Home to Georgia's disabled veterans. Georgia's payback for veterans service in the military. Other states, not all, but other states have given recognition of like $500 to all veterans who served in Vietnam. Georgia didn't do that. They started this back after World War II. They said, you know, let's, rather than give everybody recognition, let's give care to people who are wounded, injured in our homes. And that's where it started. And it's continued to work that way. But it seems like the budget people, the bean counters, don't seem to understand that. And they need to be reminded. The legislators need to be reminded. So again, contact your legislators. I've listed here some key people. And it's the appropriators in the General Assembly, particularly in the House, because, you know, like most constitutions in the U.S., the House is where the budget starts. It's where the appropriations begin. So the Appropriations Committee is headed by Matt Hatchett, and the person who actually works on it for veterans is Katie Dempsey out of Rome. And she's been working it for, I think, practically the whole time that I was working the budget for the department, which was about 15 plus years. Nice lady, but she gets direction from above. On the Senate side, the committee chair is Blake Tillery, and their contact information is listed here. And this briefing will be on the website as soon as John Bird gets back from Australia, whenever that is. I think, what, in the next couple of weeks maybe? So you can go there, download the briefing, which will give you the contact information. In the governor's office, Lauren Curry is the current chief of staff. She,
It's on the video too.
yeah, I know, but it's getting the document is what I'm trying to say, is that you can use it for reference. On their tables, in most cases, I've left a paper that was prepared by Commissioner Ross. There should be some extras floating around on what this issue is all about. Next. We need to see these homes fully funded. That's what it really comes down to. To cover increased costs of health care. That's the key. Right now, it's stuck. Need to fund the home in Milledgeville by at least an additional $3.8 million to permit the subacute treatment unit at the home to open and operate for 68 veteran patients it's designed to accommodate. Use some of the excess that's going into the reserve fund, and, you know, it's a guilt trip, you know, and they need to be reminded of it. Next.